Hi everyone, welcome back into the classroom. Well, we're going to go in. I showed you here yesterday, and I put up into the community page picture of these irises. My daughter is down in Dallas right now painting with some of her friends. And I think they're taking a class this weekend too. But anyway, she at her friend's house, all these irises, and I posted a picture of them. She's taking lots and lots of photos of them, and she'll be back up here in the next couple of days. And I thought that would be fun to see if you guys wanted to paint them. You said yes, so we're going to go do that. But we better learn some of those color mixes and stuff as well. I also want, today I'm going to be painting up, some of you have been asking also for some roses with this particular color palette, and I'm going to paint up some of these. Found this photo here, and I'll show you how we're going to make the warms and the cools and how to make those particular colors. I also, some of the other things along the line of these colors, because we're going to study the reds to the red orange through the red violet range today. So last time we did the blues, and so we're going to do this range. This is, I spent several years, not all my childhood, but several years of my childhood on the Oregon coast. And then I had a cabin up on the Oregon coast for a number of years, and just loved spending time there, and always the rhododendrons and stuff. Now, this is a photo that I found of rhododendrons out, and I think this is actually in Tennessee. But I always remember with the kids, all of this, the rhododendrons and the ocean. So I might put a little ocean scene back there with some of these beautiful smaller paintings of the rhododendrons and the colors of these rhododendrons. And we can emulate all of these really, really well. And they all go right along. I mean, look at the violets right here. So you look at this violet right in here, and you look at the violets, and from the corals to the lighter pinks, they're in there. Those colors are in there. So, I just think it would be a great color study to do some of those. And of course, we want to do some more of the landscapes, some more of the birds, some more of the flowers and stuff. And we got a lot of stuff to paint. But let's take a look at the red, from basically the orange through the red violet range. And how do we make those particular colors with this particular palette, okay? And so what we have out here, this is my Quinacridone Violet. Now, there's a couple of things that I always, in my first 20 years of painting, I didn't pay too much attention to what was called temperature. And I didn't know really how to manipulate. I didn't know that was such an important part of the painting. Now, one of the number one things I paint for is temperature, especially in flowers and stuff. I paint the warm and the cool, the light struck areas. So on this particular palette that we have, I didn't put out the greens and the browns and stuff, but on this particular palette that we have here, we have a very cool Quinacridone Violet and a very warm Naphthol Red Light. So when you look at where those sit, that Quinacridone Violet, PUR 122 sits right here. And Naphthol Red Light sits right here. And if you draw a line in between those, so we just take let's just take a pencil here, and we put a line right between those, you can see it'll make a red, it'll do all this stuff, but it will not make a red as bright as what we would get if we use other reds. That's why we have other reds in the line. And we have this one right here, Naphthol Red. You've seen me paint a few things with that Naphthol Red. And it's a beautiful red, a richer red. It's a blue red. It's leaning to the blue side, slightly to the violet side. Even the Naphthol ASU, which is one that I used to make for a long time, and I took it out of the line, but it's one that we used a lot for a lot of years, and it is not particular red. You don't have a red that really sits right on the line, what we call a spectrum red. There just isn't one in existence. They're very close, but most of the reds either lean slightly to the yellow side or slightly to the blue side. But you can mix them together to get other beautiful reds, and that's usually what I do. So I take this red-orange right here, okay? It's a red-orange. It's a beautiful red-orange. And then I have this, basically, this red violet here, all right? This is a red violet, slightly blue of red violet, but it's considered a red violet. And I mix these two together, and if you mix them together about 1 to 1, you get a beautiful, strong red, right? And the beautiful thing about this, and why I limit my palette down like this, so if I'm painting something and I want a beautiful strong red, then I can take this and this one-to-one to make that red. If I want to lean it really warm, I come over to this side to the yellow, to the Naphthol Red Light. And if I want it cool, I lean over here to the red violet. So you have a warmer red, a red, and then a red violet. This could actually have just a touch more red into it, the Naphthol Red Light. But it is a powerful, it's a beautiful, it's a nice Christmas red. You can get that. Now, when you really want to test them, let's put some more of this over here, and you really want to see them, let's just put these out with a touch of white. And, you know, our main colorists and stuff that you have out there, I used to always follow Itten, and Itten always used to say, add a little white to them to take them up. Now, white, the one thing you got to worry about white is basically reflecting light, all colors back at you. So white, in essence, is a toner. It will lighten the color so you can see it, but it actually grays the color a little bit. And if you study color theory, you'll see why. But anyway, you can lighten this up, and we can see here. So if I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint some roses with you, which we're going to do, and some flowers, some nice warm and cool flowers, you can see I get a really nice pink. If I mix these together here, I get a slightly different pink. It's a little cooler. This one is very, very warm. And you get this one right here, which is a little bit cooler, a little bit more red. And then you come down here with this one, you're going to see the blue in it now. So we'll come over here, add this. You'll see just truly, adding the white lets you see what is really within the colors. So you can see right here, I have this back and forth. I have a real warm, and this one appears really cool. A little bit bright. It's a bright. That PR122 is such a beautiful color. A powerful, powerful color. So, when you get into, like, for example, if I want to make this fuchsia pink, boy, I could just take a little bit of my red right into this color here, right into a little bit of this, and get right over maybe just a touch more of this right in here. And you'll get right into that fuchsia pink that's right there. So we can, these two powerful, one red violet, the Quinacridone Violet, and the Naphthol Red Light, which is a red-orange, those two in mixture combinations, you can make basically a wide variety from the red-orange, from the orange to the red. I'll show you some more. So these make beautiful colors. So if we're going to grab this photo here, which just came right here, okay? So if we're going to look at this photo, now look at those colors here as opposed to, how we're going to paint this floral here. It's going to look wonderful. And we can even take this one right here. So say you got to make this kind of grayish tone here. You see, and it's going to take a little bit of practice, but, and you can, guys, color theory can be learned. It is, and you teach your eye to see color. And I've taught color theory now since 1983. I taught my very first color theory class. And ever since then, I love teaching people how to see color, and your eye will slowly be able to see more and more and more colors as your eye gets adjusted to colors. And your eye constantly adjusts, and this is one thing we got to mix. When you first start mixing like this, okay, you sit there and go, oh yeah, that's pretty. But then as you stare at it a little bit longer, and this is true, guys, as you stare at it a little bit longer, your eye becomes accustomed to those colors and will start to see more variations of those colors. It's kind of like when you first turn off the lights in a room, you go, oh, it's pitch black dark. But then slowly your eyes adjust and you start to see a little bit more detail and stuff like that. Your eyes do what we call white balance, and they white balancing all the time, and they're adjusting all the time, and they're looking for differences and stuff. So what happens is your eye starts to look for differences. And after a while of staring at this color, when I take this color and put it up to this color, you're going to see that this color has a tiny bit more blue in it than this color does. It will happen. Some of you will see it right now, but if I take the tiniest bit of blue here, okay, it's going to go more towards the violet color. and I add that into this particular color here, and let's lighten that up a bit here as well, right? As I do this, and let's lighten it up a little bit, hit a little bit more blue. Let's lighten it up a bit more right into here. You're going to see that color, and you can see it could have just a tiny touch more blue than what I had in it there. Let's see where we are right here, and you'll see there's the color. See, there's the color. You'll see that. Now, that is learned, right? I've been doing this so long, I know all these colors really well. This is a learned process. You don't have to be a great artist to see it. Your eye will adjust and your eye will start to see it. But the one thing you don't know how to do is what color do I add? I see the difference. What color do I add? And that's why working through all of these different sections here, knowing what happens to this when I add that blue. Now you see this beautiful colors of this blue that are going to come in here. You know, that is what's really truly going to make your art. You have to do some of these mixes to be able to know what happens to that color. Does that make sense? That's what we have to do. So you have to do a certain amount of mixes. So I'm going to be able to paint all of those flowers. You can look right into here and see, and I can head this right over towards these real whites, and right up over here, it gets a little more white, a little bit more pink right up over here. And I'll start heading right into that one that's up there. Right back behind that though, what's the difference between what you see on my knife right there and that back there? There's a little bit of blue. Let's just add a little bit of blue and see how closer I can take my knife to that particular color. It's a little closer, not quite there, probably a little more blue. So let's just take my knife with a little bit more blue, and we get a little closer, almost there, probably a little. It'll shock you sometimes, right? And sometimes you just don't know until you sit down and you start mixing it. So that might be too much, but we'll see. And I'll add just a bit of white because the blue's darkening it a bit. Let's see how much closer I am now to that particular color. There you go. There's the color. Do you see? And so you can analyze that down. All of this you can learn. So you can see this particular flower, guys. When you look at this particular flower right here, that's the flower. That's the colors that we're going to use to paint that flower, right? Right there. And when you do these mixes, do it on a page you can tear out, let it dry, and put them up in your studio on the wall. Hang them there by the wall, or get yourself a mat board and tape them up on there so your eye can start seeing them and start seeing the difference. It's really important. And every time you look at that little color chart there, you're going to remember what you did to do that. Or make a little color notes with a little Sharpie, make a little color notes of what you did so that you can find those colors. But we'll come into here. So you'll be able to see here, you're going to be able to see the beautiful violets here. But that violet that's right there has a little bit more red in it. So we'll add a little bit more red and we'll go into that. It's probably just a touch too much, but we'll be able to make those beautiful reds. You'll see it go into these beautiful pinks into here, and you'll see all of the other colors. And one of the colors that's not expressed very much is the warmer orange, and I probably will add that into some of the painting because I love the real warmer light and the real cool. So, when you put these, this is warm and light, and you put this in a flower right next to this in a flower, that's when it gets really pretty, where you get some of those you can see it right back here. It's a little bit warmer. See those little slightly warmer there. There's touches of it right in here, but more of the blue right in there. It's really surprising, but it helps you to identify it. So that gets us basically our red violets and over here towards our red oranges. And then one of the other colors that I'm asked with all the times is the corals. Some of those salmon colors, the coral colors. A lot of different ways to make them. They're basically oranges. So you can take a color here, and if you want a bright orange, then you go right over here to your Hansa yellow, and it takes just a whisper of the red here, and you'll get this brighter orange, right? You'll get a bright orange. You might even want it even brighter yet. You can make it more yellow, more bright. If you add this Naphthol Red Light, and if you go down to a yellow oxide, you get a more toned orange. The orange that you make is more gray. It's softer here. It's grayed down. It's not as bright as that one. That's because the yellow oxide is an earth color. And if you mix anything from inside the wheel, got all these papers here, find my wheel here, right? So the Hansa yellow light sits here. The yellow oxide sits here. It's closer into the wheel. And we said the more into the wheel you go, the more toned the color becomes. So when I mix Naphthol Red Light and yellow oxide, I get oranges along this line, close right through the halfway, right in here, so they're toned. When I take the Hansa yellow light and Naphthol Red Light, I make them a little bit further out on the wheel, right? So they're going to make oranges right in here that are going to be brighter. And this is one reason why you'll find in our painting line, though, Paranone Orange, PO43, why we have a pure pigment orange in here. It's brighter yet. That thing is so bright. But some of you really want to make bright oranges. So you have that one to help you make even brighter oranges if you want. So there's all different kinds of ways. But these make beautiful colors. For your salmon colors, your coral colors, you've got to make these orange colors that are right in here. So you can get some, you can use these and your yellow oxide, and you'll start to make some really pretty, especially if you add just a little bit of white to it, which will help tone it slightly and lighten it. You'll start to make some salmon, some coral colors, right? And they're really pretty. So you got to remember, a salmon type of color is really just kind of an orange. That's all it is. So like right here, okay, so we look down through here. Here's salmon, and boy, I nailed that pretty good. And so here's the salmon color, right? There it is right there, right, for what we're going to do. And so that color, beautiful color. It's a beautiful painting color. Those of us, when we go over to do some of those iris, what do you see in those iris and stuff? You're going to see out here on these edges, you're going to see maybe this beautiful salmon color. So what is salmon color? Salmon color is a toned orange. So it's basically tone it down. So how would you make a toned orange? Well, you can do anything. I mean, if you look at your wheel and start understanding your wheel, that salmon color is going to be right about in here, guys. Okay? Real toned and right in here. So I can get it with burnt sienna, a little red, and some white too. I can get it that way. There's all different. So burnt sienna, it's so close to a real toned light burnt sienna that burnt sienna might do it. There's 1,000 ways in which you can get it. And when we go study some other colors, I'll show you some different ways to get there, okay? But anyway, so that's that way. I love the peach colors. So this is you can do this. You can get this really over to a peach color. And if I want to make it a prettier little peach, maybe I add a slightly brighter yellow. Any of these yellows to it, I'll get a prettier, lighter little peach color. So I'll head just a little bit lighter, maybe a touch yellower, and I'll get into some of these peach colors. Sometimes I like it just a little more red. So it's a little bit brighter. That went too far. We'll get just a bit of that. This really pretty little peach colors. And so they're a little brighter than the toned salmon type of color. But one of my favorite colors to make into roses is this kind of a peach color, neutral kind of peach color. And that is where I love to, matter of fact, I'll do it right up over here. I'll take like excuse me, not that one. I go to the other side of the wheel to a red violet, okay? And so if I look at this red violet, right? And you go, David, where are those peach colors and stuff sitting right in here? If I look to this, I'm gonna drive that right over here, right over into this area here. And so some of my prettiest colors I like to make is to drive it even closer, right with that yellow oxide. So I like to take this and I like to take yellow oxide. And this is one of the prettiest real toned salmony type peach colors I like to make in roses. And then when you add white to this, you'll see that that color is really a pretty and a soft color. So I love to paint these colors right in here. And it's not too much different. Let me just wipe this off right here so you can see. I'm doing this now with quinacridone in them. It's not too much different, just a little bit grayer than this one that's here, right? If I didn't want it that gray, I can brighten it up. Just any brighter yellow here will take this up. Diarylite, I painted a whole series of roses, really pretty roses, with diarylite, excuse me, and this is Indian yellow. Indian yellow and diarylite had the same color and mixing. Basically, the Indian yellow is a little bit more transparent. But you can take the Indian yellow and look at that, how much brighter that is. See how much brighter that is than what's going on here? Makes this look really gray, doesn't it? But you can add this, and then you get these really pretty peach colors here. So look at the difference here between this one and this one. This one's more grayed, this one's brighter. Well, why is that happening? Because I'm adding the brighter yellow. So I can use the more toned yellow version of it, which is what I really like right in here. When I paint soft, white, peach-colored roses, I love this. I love to paint these colored roses right in here like this. And I will head to a cooler color up here, and I will head down here to the yellows, which will be a warmer color. And so I'll go into my shadows, through my midtones, to my light warm tones. Does that make sense? And so I know yellow oxide, I know Naphthol Red Light, those are warm colors. These are warm colors. This is my cool color. This is a color I'll use into the shadows right in here. But then I go into these beautiful peaches. So my roses transition this way and then over into the yellows and into the lights. That's where I love to paint the roses. But I can drive any portion of the rose this way. I can come down here, mix it up with some of the yellows and stuff and make different colors. Roses here, this particular way here. So I can control all different kinds of ways to make beautiful roses and all different kinds of ways to make beautiful pinks. And so I have this nice warm color that's right here. You see that? I can instantly, if I go to the shadow or something, add a little bit of the quinacridone here and head this right over to shadow. Aren't those all pretty colors? All of these here, all of them will make beautiful roses, beautiful colors, right? And what you got to remember is most of the beautiful flowers that are out there, like all of these that we see here, right? Let's go back and look at one of the first things we painted, which were the azaleas. Look at the azalea colors in here. Look at those azalea colors right there and those right in there. You see, those, I mean, those azaleas can be in here really easy. And those whites actually get a little blues into them. If I wanted to soften gray this up, then I add the third element. And this is what I mean. And we learned this in the other blue. Why does phthalo blue and red make gray? Because red is leaning yellow and phthalo blue leans yellow. And basically you're taking red, blue, and yellow. So, and I look at this is basically red and yellow. And if I add the third element here, just the tiniest little bit of blue, I'll lighten and gray the color. And I'll make soft, soft grays, beautiful, soft gray colors here with the blue. Anytime you see gray, and remember this, in any of these colors over here, anytime you see gray or anything like that, you've got to make sure you have all three of your primaries in there. Does that make sense? All three of your primaries. It can lean heavier to the red and to the yellow, but you need that third primary, the blue here, to make it gray. Does that make sense? And so, and look at this. Look at these beautiful. This is all beautiful flower colors in here. Look at those. That's all beautiful colors in there for flowers. And we're going to be able to paint all of those colors. Look at those. I mean, any of these blues, this goes into here. Can you imagine doing some beautiful, take these and then warming? We might do that in this lesson. We might take some of these, look at these beautiful colors here that you get. And so I move my red violet through my reds to my red orange, and then I gray them. So what's happening out here? I'm moving this through its red orange. So I'm going from red violet here, red violet to orange to the grays. Isn't that beautiful colors in there for flowers and stuff like that? You can have, and that's the whole thing. And I know these mixes, I know these colors very well, but you can see here, even this limited palette can make really bright ones. Are they the brightest you can make? No. You can make even brighter ones. Do we need to make brighter ones than that? Well, I don't see why, but you can certainly make some beautiful, and look at this. This will make beautiful sunsets, beautiful colors. I can head this further towards a real cool, like right down in here. If I was painting something, I would fit that blue, probably a little bit more blue right down into here to a real cool side of the painting here. But isn't it pretty? I mean, look at the tones that go through all of this, and you're mixing all of these colors up. And so all I'm doing all the time, like I told you in the blue lesson, all the time when I'm painting in these two things, I'm looking at warm and cool. But all the time I'm thinking, am I in a primary color, a secondary color, or am I dropping it down? What is this? Is this a secondary or a tertiary? This is a tertiary because it contains a violet and a yellow. And violet contains violet, a yellow, and I add the blue. I'm adding the three primaries together, and I'm driving those colors right into here. And if you see a lot of blue expressed, that color is coming off onto the blue side, but almost to the center. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the limited colors that we have at the Quinacridone Violet and the Naphthol Red Light, they make some beautiful reds to red violets and some beautiful oranges and peach colors down in between there. Peach is this red and yellow. You can make it from red and yellow. It's an orange, right? It's an orange. But if you want to get a richer one, you may go grab a red violet and a yellow and take it that way as well. A different way than your traditional orange color. Does that make sense? But peaches are orange. But you can make orange from a red violet and a yellow and a white. And when you do that, that one is maybe a little more tertiary. Does that make sense? Why would that make sense? Why would I say the red, violet, and the yellow and the white is more tertiary? Because red violet contains what other of the three? Blue. So I'm heavier into the blue, right? If I make my peach this orange, I can get it more gray. But if I make my peach from a Naphthol Red Light and a yellow Oxide, I'm right in between yellow and orange. I'm right in here. It's toned. Only yellow Oxide is more toned. But, a pure colorist like myself would say, yeah, but yellow Oxide's more tertiary because as you go into the wheel, you get more tertiary. But when you're thinking about it, it's red and yellow and white. So red and yellow and white. And over here, I got red, yellow, tiny bit of blue and white. Okay. And it can get really confusing, but you're going to start breaking it down. As you start understanding these colors, you're going to start breaking it down. But the one thing I want you to remember more than anything else, guys, is it primary, is it secondary, or is it tertiary? And you can see right now my frustration with the entire painting industry, where they sit there and they give you a color wheel and they tell you that the third mix down on this color wheel is a tertiary color. And just got to find my wheel here and all these photos. See, we got to paint all of these. I just think this would be just so much fun to paint all of these. But we go here with this, right? And so we say primary, secondary, and everyone calls that a tertiary, and it's not. It only contains red and yellow. The orange is the secondary. You name it by the primary name, then the secondary name. Red, orange, primary red, secondary orange together. There's no blue in it. The tertiaries are in here. And those where those pretty colors are. And you can see a yellow oxide, right? You can see the yellow oxide in there. And you'll see why these colors all gray down, and you see the grayness and stuff in them that comes this. And the beautiful range of color that all of this can make when you approach it really controlled. So there's a lot to it, but all I want you to remember in this lesson is these things. We have a cool Quinacridone Violet that is a red violet. We have a warm Naphthol Red Light that is a red orange. And then we can use those in conjunction, mixing together. And I'm always aware, am I going to add my third element here of the blue to create those beautiful gray colors, okay? Those blues, those grays. You need that third primary to always create those grays. But I can express it more gray, I can express it more blue, I can drop more blue in it, I can express it anyway. But we get this wide variety of very beautiful colors. But in my mind, I'm always thinking, if I want this to go more gray, what do I have to add? If I'm mixing this, even this red violet and the yellow and stuff, and okay, I'm liking that and everything, but I want it to go a little bit more gray, what do I add? That's basically a red, basically a yellow. What else do I have to add in that mix? A tiny bit of it, blue. You have to add a tiny bit of the blue, and look at the beautiful run of colors that you have, especially when that color goes through a transition. We call this harmonious. These colors are very harmonious through here because this color is in all of this, but that color is evolving to those other color channels. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's a lot of fun. It's confusing sometimes, so sometimes you have to watch it a few times, but you know, after doing some of these mixes and we paint through some of these exercises, we'll paint them on landscapes, we'll paint them on florals, we'll paint oceans with this, we'll paint, you know, snow and mountains. It makes beautiful snow. And, you know, we'll have some beautiful times with the spring colors, you know, mixing and painting all of these colors. And you can see that all of these colors can be made very simply. We'll do it together, okay? All right, guys, so there you go. So I'm going to go into a lesson. I'm going to paint the next one here in just a few minutes with the some roses that we're going to do. We're going to paint those irises, okay? I've got to paint daffodils with you. I promised daffodils. We're going to paint some more landscapes. I really want to do, I think it would be a lot of fun to do like those rhododendrons with the scene of an ocean back behind it, because that's my memory as a boy growing up on the Oregon coast. So I want to do those too. And these are beautiful rhododendron colors. I don't know where it happened to that photo. I've got so many photos out here that I'm going to have to pare them down a little bit here. But that rhododendron one, here's this one, there's that one, and here's this one, right? So we're going to do these, but we're going to do those I think those rhodies would look really, really nice. They're in here somewhere. Yeah, boy, did that get messed up here. Let's see, where did you go? Right there, okay? Look at those colors now for these rhododendrons, right? Do you see those? Do you see those colors in there with the rhododendrons there, right? And then how would you get, oh, you got kind of a little purpley color up there, right? How are you going to get that? Well, just take it this over towards probably a little too much. That phthalo is so powerful, right? So just take that right up over there. There's those colors right up there. Do you see that? That's those guys right up there. Isn't that pretty? That's basically those rhododendrons. They could go a little bit redder, like right up over here. You can redden this up a bit. Redden that blue up just a bit, and you'll hit those guys right in there. See? Those are all in there. Wouldn't that be a fun one to paint as well, to learn how to control all of those colors? And you can do this. I know, you know, a lot of my beginners, they go, oh, God, how do you know where to put all this? Because I did these exercises for years. So watch these videos several times. Put it in your brain. This is, so you start to see this stuff. It has to be coming just like rote. You have to learn it by rote. Just mix these colors. This is what's going to happen when I mix these colors. And the one driving thing that I remember more than anything else is primaries secondaries, tertiaries. And now I also remember warm and cool. So I know what my colors are temperature-wise. I know how to drive them, okay? All right. So let's go over, we'll paint some roses, then we'll continue on with painting daffodils and stuff. And I have a couple of birds. I want to do a goldfinch, nice big bright spring goldfinch. Someone's, a viewer sent me a picture of a beautiful goldfinch. I'm going to paint it as well. And some landscapes and stuff. Lots of stuff to go through. But even if you don't like painting flowers, mix up some of these colors along with me to teach your eye, okay? All right. And we'll continue on with our learning. I'll see you guys over as we paint those other roses.